Hi, this is Nick from Nick's Handmade Crochet, and today I thought I'd just talk about hooks and yarn, and how to read a yarn label when you're buying something. So we'll start with hooks and then we'll go on to yarn. So just a disclaimer, I'm not sponsored by anyone. I'm just, accumulated hooks by buying them or gifts from other people if they've found them, secondhand or from someone who's not crocheting anymore. And really, it's up to you if you prefer a style or a brand. So, for example, you can get big plastic hooks like this. Now, you can just see the range. This is a very small range of sizes, but this one here, that's 15 millimeters. I'm not sure if you can see that properly. 15 millimeter, so that's quite big. So unless you're using some really, really chunky yarn or doing something like that with a particular fiber that requires a big yarn, then it's probably not on your to-do list straight away to get that one. So there's bamboo, there's aluminium hooks with sort of plastic / rubber around them. And again, it's just about how you feel holding them and using them. So what are all these numbers and things on the side of them? I'll bring this one because it's easily identifiable. So this is a F3.75 crochet hook, and it's by a company called Clover Amour. And I do like this brand because it also comes in these sizes that are a bit different. So quite often your yarn hooks will be a 3 or a 4, and then some patterns will say you need a 3.25 or 3.5, 3.75. So the quarter numbers in between aren't always as easy to find. But you can source these in Australia online. So yeah, they're quite good. My favourite at the moment is this, and they're also by Clover. So you can see on there that it says it's an H or a 5 millimeter. Again, depending on what country the video or pattern is from, they will describe it either in a letter or a number. And hopefully I can find just a quick shot of something online that I find that can explain to you what the difference is between the letters and the numbers. So some hooks will come in packets like this one, and it tells you how many millimeters it is, and then in US it says L. So we know that if anyone relates to a hook that's use an L hook in US terms, it's equivalent to 8 millimeter. Again, this is brand's quite old. Sorry, a bit of glare on that. Sullivan's, I think it's Australian, I'm not sure, but it's obviously a product that was distributed within the Australian stores. So then you can get just plain metal ones. This is 2, so very tiny. So again, you're probably not going to start with something that small. That one's made in England, it tells you, and it doesn't have a letter associated with it, so it just says 2. It doesn't have millimeters or anything, but I'm assuming that's going to be the same as this one, which is a 2/0, 2 millimeter. So that's just a quick intro, very basic about hooks. If you're starting to crochet, I would probably get rid of all of these hooks and all the other sizes, and I would use this one's 3.5, an E hook. See if I can get that in shot. I'm not going to be able to get that in shot very well. because of the red, a 4mm, which is G, or the 5mm, which is H. So starting a project, I would use one of those three. You can go smaller or bigger, but I think you'll find that trying to get your needle through the stitches will be easier if you stick with this range, this small range to start. Okay, so we'll just go on to some yarn now. And again, I'm just going to talk about yarn that I can source in Australia. Now, some is from stores like Big W or Spotlight, and others I will get online because I'm used to what type of yarn and the size that I like to crochet with now. Sometimes it's still a bit hit and miss. You might need to order a couple balls, have a feel. My suggestion is don't go for the cheapest of the cheapest yarn. Even for beginners, I think you want something that's not going to split. And what I mean by that is that when you try and put the yarn around your hook, the yarn splits and it's really frustrating. So try and find something that's, you know, not too expensive, not dirt cheap. You might be able to find something in an op shop. It just depends on, you know, if you just want to practice getting the yarn on a hook and doing a few chains. And I'll probably talk about that later in another video about how we do a chain. All right, so this is a yarn that I can get in Australia. It's at Big W and I can get it online, and I'll search around for the cheapest price I can get. But there's a lot of information here on these labels. So we'll just quickly go through what that sort of information is. And I might just adjust this camera up a little bit. A bit more room. Yeah. All right, so this starts off with where the yarn is made. It's made in India. And then it has all your washing instructions. And then here it will come to the suggested hook. So if you're a crocheter or a knitter, it'll have a little hook for crochet and 2 needles. And again, it'll specify. So this one says 4mm. And this is about doing a gauge swatch. So once you're up to doing more complex things and like fitted clothing, that's where that information is a guide for you as well. So this is 8-ply, and it clearly says that on the top of the yarn. It'll tell you what the fibre content is, the meterage and the grams. So just be mindful if something says 150 grams, 150 grams or 100 grams or 50 grams or something is different for every yarn and each ply and the meterage. So you might think, oh, I'll get 100 grams of that. That's great. It might not have 375 meters in it. It might have 100. So you're really not going to get very far with that. So be mindful of the meterage as well as the weight of the yarn. This label clearly states who produces the yarn. So this is from Bendigo in Victoria. It's the Peyton's brand, and has the barcode, and then it has a colour. Some yarns will actually tell you what the colour is. They'll call the yarn by that, and then it's got the lot. So if you're buying a couple of things, you want to look at the dye lot of your yarn as well. With something that's so variegated like this, it doesn't matter so much because you won't be able to tell the difference. But if you're crocheting in one colour and you don't get the same dye lot, the batch, then your project will definitely, it'll be obvious where you've started your new ball of yarn from. So just for example, I'm going to show you this brand, mainly because I use this. It's a cotton acrylic and I find that it's quite nice to work with, and it's got more cotton than acrylic in it. It is an American brand, and Spotlight has the monopoly on this particular brand, and you can't get it anywhere else in Australia, to my knowledge, apart from Spotlight. So that's the cotton cakes. You can get other Karen brands in Australian Spotlight and online in some of the online stores in Australia, so you can search for that. But the reason I've just pulled this out of my stash is that I want to show you, you know, the amount of information is on here. So there's quite a bit of information. Some of them come with patterns. It may be for crochet or for knitting. And it's made in China. So again, depending on when you're first starting, and it's hard to just focus on buying yarn that is Australian made and produced here. It might be Australian owned, but then made overseas. So there's a couple of brands that are Australian owned, such as Bendigo Woolen Mills, and I just state that because I buy their yarn. There are other woolen mills in Australia, alpaca farms and all sorts of things. So there is some really nice yarn, but if you're starting out, it can be expensive. So you really do need to sort of limit where you shop to start with. So this particular brand of yarn, now it doesn't tell you what ply it is. Sorry, I got a bit of shine there. It doesn't tell you what ply it is, but it'll give you a number. So a lot of American yarns, even some of the UK yarns, even in Europe, will have this number. So it says medium 4. So if you look up the equivalent of that, that's going to be around about the 8 ply. And there are other names, so I'll try and find a little screenshot of something to pop in the video if my my technical abilities allows for that. So again, it suggests the size of the hook for this yarn. Sorry about that. So they're suggesting a 5mm, and again they have US H/8. So quite often we'll talk in terms of millimeters, 5mm. That's what I get used to anyway. If someone says gives me a letter, I have to really think about what size that is. Has washing instructions on there as well, and it'll give you the gauge swatch. So if you wanted to work out exactly the tension and the size that your end project is going to be, you can do a swatch, and they're suggesting that's 10 by 10 with 14 single crochet, and in knitting it gives you the same information, but relative to knitting needles there. Again, it's telling me the weight of the ball, but I'm interested in the meterage, which is 193 meters. So if we compare the other ball that was 150 grams with 375 meters, and this one's 100 grams with 193. So, you know, you really have to be mindful of the meterage and how much you're going to get out of each ball, and the type of stitches that you're doing will chew up the yarn quicker than another stitch. So just be mindful of that. So that's just another label. Here's another label from a cotton brand that I buy in Australia. Now, it's really hard to get yarn in Australia, cotton yarn in Australia that's manufactured here. A lot of cotton is from overseas, and I know that it'll be brought in and then spun here and dyed. I know Bendigo Woolen Mills do that. As far as I know, I checked on that a couple of years ago. So again, this will tell you 8-ply or DK. So again, DK is another terminology in terms of describing a yarn, as opposed to having a number, like a weight on it. This has got quite good meterage. For the 100-gram ball, there's 235 meters. Again, for a crochet hook, it's suggesting that you would use a 4mm hook. So all of these yarns, you know, go along. So that 8-ply / DK / the number for that would probably be a 3-weight yarn, even though, yeah, so 4-weight is a 5mm, suggestion only, and a DK 8-ply is 4mm. So if you're starting to learn how to crochet, again, anything that sort of suggests a 4mm, you can have a look. 4mm or 5mm. They're the sorts of yarns that you probably want to pick up. Now, 8-ply and 8-ply aren't always exactly the same. So, you know, the feel on your hook and the tension and the stretch. Cotton doesn't have much stretch at all. So whilst cotton is a natural fibre, it doesn't have as much stretch to it, as opposed to something that is a cotton acrylic mix. So this one's a 60% cotton and 40% acrylic. There's 190 meters in this. So these are both 100 grams, but this one, the white, has got 235 meters, as opposed to this one, which has got 190 meters. So things do vary. They both suggest a 4mm hook, but the yarn itself, I don't know if you can see that. The yarn itself, the yellow, it's also spun a bit differently, so it will be, it has a bit more stretch, a bit more give, and it just feels like it's a tad thicker. Not much, you know, negligible. So again, if you wanted to know, you know, the gauge swatch, this one, 19 stitches to 20 rows. This one, 17 stitches to 17 rows for the end result. So things are just a bit different for every ball of yarn that you pick up. This one I can source in Australia, this brand. But here, instead of telling you it's 8-ply or giving me a number, it tells you here sport weight. So again, something else in the mix about how we read our yarn labels. But you can see here that it's suggesting a 3 to 3.5mm hook. So again, you'd sort of say, well, that would probably be comparable to an 8-ply, although sport weight is slightly smaller. In Australia, we mainly have 4-ply and 8-ply. You may be able to find 5-ply somewhere in between. Anyway, so they're just a few tips about crochet hooks and reading a yarn label. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you soon.